wife was nice enough to bring me a coffee and a breakfast wrap, so I just had a quick break. Rollers in, bolts tight. Okay, and that thing, I mean, there was a lot of sideways movement, but for what it does, I'm just going to assume that that's as normal as it's going to get. It's certainly the chain can't come off it, so I'm not too concerned. I got the head gasket in place, you can see there. One thing, that is the old head gasket. The new head gasket, which I'm not too friggin' impressed about, let me tell you, was damaged in shipping. And look right there. The cylinder, they shipped it, they had the cylinder sitting on it like this in the packaging. So of course the sharp end of the bottom of the cylinder, banging around on it while shipping it across 2 countries. You can see it. There's a big groove out of that, there and there. The center part, the steel part, which is absolutely critical, has got dents in it. So the whole thing is actually bent, you can see it. There's no bloody way am I putting that thing on. Unfortunate, I mean, you pay money for a product, you expect that they're going to take a little more care. I don't know if maybe the post office shipped it upside down, but you'd think you would put that in somewhat of a better container. Some bubble wrap would not kill you, but it is what it is. Fortunately, the old head gasket came off in decent shape. It's not going to be ideal, but this isn't no racing bike. Performance isn't that huge of a deal. It's this is going to be for my 10-year-old daughter. 10 in a few months. Anyway, she's 9 now, so just to putt around. And it is what it is. We'll deal with it. A couple of things. When you're looking at the head, or sorry, the cylinder here. Okay, there's a little sleeve with a rubber seal. It'll go on this stud. Slides down, and that'll sit flush down into the engine. Again, I can't do it with one hand, but there you go. I can't do it with one hand. Okay, and the only thing I could think what that's for, there's your regular oil return. I think it's just in case you get oil running down here so it doesn't pool up and it's allowed to travel back to the crankcase. This one doesn't have one, and I mean they're directly across from one another, but that's what that does. So yeah, so there you go. Make sure you got those in place. This one, for this side, has a little washer inside of it. And I'm going to assume it's because there's a lot more heat here at the top of the cylinder than there was at the bottom. If you remember, that rubber seal that was down here directly below this doesn't have the steel washer in it. Okay, so no big deal. Those go in place. And the same thing, as you're sliding the head on, just check them and make sure. This one should be okay unless, it vibrates loose, but this one may come out. You can see it's not even aligned here, so how critical is it really, right? It's just to let oil travel back to the crankcase and not leak out of the engine. Quick look around here, and we should be able to put that head on. Oh, the dowel. One dowel here. The other dowel came pre-shipped in the head. I don't know why I get one dowel out of the entire kit. That one was already in the head. No other dowels were in anything, but it's a budget engine, Chinese engine, budget parts, so it is what it is. I know I'm saying that a lot, aren't I? Alright, so before I can put the head on, I got to pull off the cam gear because that has to be put onto the chain and fed up as I'm installing the head. So of course you got to remove your cover, which is a long bolt that goes in from the far side. On this kit, the head was pre-assembled. The bolts are not tight; they're finger tight. So I'm going to pull that off, and you can see, well, I got it here, the timing mark. So right now the cam lobes are actually up in the up positions. You can see them there. Okay, so it's between intake and exhaust at the moment, so that needs to be rotated down so that that is at the top so that I can time the engine as I assemble. But we'll get to that. I'll pull the cam gear off now and we'll put the head on and worry about timing here in a bit. Alright, cam gear's off. You can see that mark a little better. That will be top dead center. What you align that with in the head is right in there, where my finger is. Okay, so basically if you were to draw a line straight up the engine, that would be where it is. So it's actually in line with the cylinder. Okay, I decided it would be easier to rotate this to top dead center before I took it off because the cam gear gives me leverage, and again, you're fighting the pressure, the spring pressure of the springs, and you're not going to be able to rotate that right now. It hits the valve, and you gotta, how am I going to turn that against the spring, right? So I did it with the cam gear on. It was pretty easy. I could do it with my fingers. So a little top dead center logic for you here. While I got the head off, and I see all my marks on my flywheel, all right, I can rotate this to top dead center, or roughly about. You can see there, top dead center. Okay, if I go too far, it goes past, it goes back down again. You have F and T. T is top dead center, F is firing. Okay, they fire a little bit earlier than top dead center because, again, time for flame propagation and whatnot. There's your mark, and there's top dead center. Okay, now I'm trying to do this with, there's my little mark right there, and I want top dead center. You see the piston is definitely at top dead center, and the problem is the magnets in here. When I let go, turn it off just a bit. There's really no way to get it to stay right at top dead center because of those magnets. You can see what you'll end up with is one or two teeth off if that happens. So what you can do is you can rough time this sucker right here and now. If you were to put this gear in, and you can kind of dead eye it up like so. Now it's not going to be perfect, you're still going to have to check it, but when you put your gear in, if you got everything in line here at this point, and you got tension on the chain, you can put that gear in and almost always end up on or one or more or less teeth, or well, one tooth off. Alright, and you'll find that a lot of times you'll actually be on it. It'll work out. Sometimes you may have to, you know, walk the gear one tooth left or one tooth right. But time it now before you put the head on. Save yourself a little grief. Okay, so this is basically what I'm talking about. The magnet has pulled that apart because I can't put two hands on with the camera. So I had it set up so you can see the gear, the timing, and if I was to line that up, you'd see it's basically off. It's being pulled off because that is moved. But right now, that is almost perfectly timed. Okay, and again, if I had two hands, I could hold that and show you, but that's what you're looking for. It'll make your life a lot easier when you put the head on. Alright, head slid into place. One thing that happened for me is when I went to slide the head down, I couldn't get these bolts through. And what had happened was the shaft that the rocker arms sits on flows back and forth in there, similar to just like a pin. It had slid out into these recesses. The bolts go through, so I had to push them back in with a screwdriver, and then it went in no problem. So I did have to remove this cover. I didn't think I would, but I did. Yeah, it was nothing big again, and this is why you don't force things, don't force the issue, just hand pressure and have a look. Okay, so my gear slid up, and it's kind of a weird fit. All right. And you can see, again, it takes two hands. I'm a little bit off on fire here, but when you look, I love it when a plan works out. I'm basically timed. Okay, so all I need to do now is use a screwdriver. What I'll do is I'll get in here and I'll just gently pry up until this gear, because you're fighting the spring tension or the chain tension. Once that kind of lines up, I just gently screw into here to make sure the cam's in position, and I can start my bolts. And again, I'm going to have a good detailed look with both hands just to make sure my timing is exactly on, because it's not hard to be 1/2 off. These are very small cam teeth. If you're 1 off, it will affect your performance, and there's a chance that your valve will be in the wrong position. When the piston goes to top dead center, you could actually have piston on valve contact, which will bend your valves. Alright, so you'll want to be really particular about your timing. I'll get a shot of it once she's on and bolted up. Okay, so now that I got things, the cam gear's on. You can see T top dead center is lined up with the mark. I'm holding it with my thumb because the magnets are still fighting me, and not quite straight on, but there's our mark lined up with the head. So a plan worked out together. What I did was I just put I'll let go of that now. I just put a screwdriver here into the bottom bolt hole and gently walk it up. Remember, there's threads in there, so you don't want to be prying like a lunatic. And just use that to pull gently up on the cam until it slid up over the end of the cam here, okay, and popped into that recess. Now I'm ready to bolt it on. Alright, cam gear bolts are tightened up. Checked it again one last time before we proceed. Top dead center, marks on, no problem. On this particular engine, because it came pre-assembled, obviously they didn't adjust valve lash. You can see that's way beyond and everything's loose. The thing I don't like about these is they say you gotta have, you know, whatever the valve lash is, a couple thousandths of an inch, which is basically the gap between the end of the rocker and the top of the valve. Well, even my smallest feeler gauge does not fit in here because of this design. Like, that's crooked, so it's going to give me a false reading. I'm not bending the feeler gauge to get one in there. So we're just going to have to dead-eye this. And all you're going to do with the valves at top dead center, so you know both valves are closed, you don't want any tension on this from the cam lobes, you're just going to loosen off this lock nut and turn that center part. Okay, it's a little square. It's hard to see, but actually this one isn't even a square. Well, there is a square, it's just farther down. Okay, so we're going to turn that until most of the movement here is gone. Now you want a tiny little bit of movement in there, because you don't want that on all the time, because it can actually, once things heat up, it'll keep your valve open. So you want just a hair of movement in there between, a little gap. So we're going to walk those down and get them adjusted, and I'll show you. Okay, so here we are. I walked it all the way down, loosened off the nut. This is finger tight, so you can adjust it. When the engine's running and hot, which is when you're technically supposed to do this, you can't do that with your fingers. So right now, I don't know if you can hear that, but it almost feels like no movement, but you can hear it clicking. And that's about what the gap should be. Once that's done, you can go ahead and tighten down your lock nut. Wife's yelling at puppies. And that's about what you're looking at. Okay? I'd love to be able to get a feeler gauge in there, but it's just not going to happen. Alright, right side cover's on. The long bolt that goes right through the camshaft to hold on this cover and the gasket are on. Just sliding the, I'm going to call it a valve cover. I don't know what the official word is, but that's what it would be if this was a car engine. Valve cover and fancy chrome nuts. We'll get all this put together. And throw the carb back on it, the covers, and I think we're just about ready to put it back on. Torque those things down. I gotta look up what the torque is first, and I'll get a shot as she's all assembled before I put it on.